It looks like it's working too. Go ahead.
Welcome into Rover Sports, NFL, Week 4. I'm here with Kurt Magoosh, and my name is Dr. Kurt Schilling Magoosh. And having said that, yes, of course.
Okay.
Because if you're going to be Kurt, I got to be Kurt Schilling.
Right.
And we want to invite everybody to talk about this week in the NFL.
Right.
Go ahead, Mr.
Magoosh.
Go ahead, Mr. Hoagie.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here on my own stream. It's been a little while since I've conducted a live stream, but it's fun going live. And this is a beautiful camera you've got, and a really impressive setup here, and just a really good show that you had today on Mike Missanelli's show. For the Eagles post game, but I'm doing quite well, and it was an amazing week, not only in college football but in the National Football League as well.
Absolutely. We'll start off with the premier game, and that is premier if you like terrible weather. It was 55 degrees, 40-mile-an-hour winds, and swirling rain, and this brought the Philadelphia Eagles to beat the Jacksonville Jags. With the final score, Spencer?
I'm going to say the final score was 30 to 22. What do you think?
It's close enough.
Yeah.
Now, the fact of the matter is that tonight, the Eagles were down 14-0. They were on the ropes, and they came back, and Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders had the day of the year, the game of the year. And looking at it, there were literally 5 turnovers by the Jacksonville Jags. And this was spearheaded by Trevor Lawrence, who fumbled 4 times and threw an interception to James Bradbury. And so basically they flipped the score. They were up. The Jags were up 14-0. Mm-hmm. And then the Eagles came storming back, missing an extra point and going up 20-14. And after that, the second half was a bit of a slog fest, and the Eagles ended up winning, maintaining their status as the only undefeated team in the league. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. What other games interest you?
So really, Howie Roseman, I mean, the way that this team is built, I mean, I didn't see Hassan Reddick being this premier pass rusher. I mean, he's one of the premier pass rushers in the league. Brandon Graham is also one of the best pass rushers in the league. The linebacking core of Edwards and White, I never would have thought that they would have been premier. James Bradbury was available for any team to select, yet the Eagles selected him. So Jonathan Gannon should get a head coaching job. I think that the Texans made a mistake, we can say, in hiring Lovie Smith and not Jonathan Gannon, because Jonathan Gannon should be a head coach. You know who else should maybe be a head coach is Shane Steichen. And if this team goes 15-2, other teams should poach from the Eagles. There's zero doubt about that. I mean, don't you agree that NFL teams, if the Eagles stay healthy and are the number 1 seed in the NFC, don't you think that somebody should hire Steichen and Jonathan Gannon, especially Steichen too, because he had to develop Jalen Hurts and get him playing at this ability?
Well, both of these guys have no experience as head coaches. Steichen is only play calling for really the first year. Gannon is a young guy. I think he got a gratuitous interview last year. But the good news about having young coaches with not a lot of experience is that most franchises are not going to hinge their whole franchise on a new person with no experience. So I think for the Eagles, I think it would be best for them to retain their coordinators.
Okay, we can bounce around the NFL. So we could talk about other 1:00 games.
Sure.
So Baltimore had a big lead, and they just keep blowing big leads. I mean, they had a big lead against the Dolphins, and then today they let Buffalo really come back and win. And Buffalo, I mean, this was a huge win for them. Now they go to 3-1, and with the Patriots losing the day in Lambeau, the Patriots have lost to they've lost to the Dolphins away. That's a tough loss. The Patriots in week 3, they had a home loss to the Baltimore Ravens, which is a very good team. And then they lost today to the Packers. So they've lost to the Dolphins, the Packers, and the Ravens, 3 great teams. And it just shows you they're 1-3 now, where the New York Giants, they were able to play the Chicago Bears, who are terrible, the Panthers, that are also an awful offensive team. And then they beat a Tennessee team in week 1 by getting very fortuitous with a missed field goal. So those are the state of 2 teams. If Mac Jones was healthy, who would you take on a neutral field between the 1-3 Patriots and the 3-1 Giants?
Well, I would say because the Patriots are down to their 3rd quarterback, albeit he had a pretty nice second half, I would still take the Giants with Danny Jones because of the experience. But I would say if Mac Jones hypothetically was healthy, I would be taking the Patriots.
Exactly. So it's really tough for Bill Belichick. I mean, I hope Belichick can stay healthy. I mean, he's 70 years old at this point, him and Pete Carroll. And it's going to be important for Belichick to really stay healthy. Do you think Belichick is going to enjoy continuing to evolve with the process of football and all these new rule changes and stuff?
Yeah, I think so. Belichick has been through so much over decades, and I know he loves coaching, and so I don't think he's one to give it up. And he's in good health. Want to thank everybody logging in. I see to Kurt Magoo's and Rover Sports National, and this is a late night. We're going at 1:00 in the East, so things are finally starting to blow up here.
Yeah, absolutely, and in a good way. And you guys
In a very good way.
You guys can also present comments.
You can
and
comment
we'll
any
be
questions
happy
about
to
any
answer
games.
any questions or comments or concerns about any game all around the National Football League.
So we saw what I think was a blowout of a game. Kansas City Chiefs going to Tampa Bay and basically just rolling. And Pat Mahomes just looking like old Pat. And uncharacteristically, Tom Brady fumbling, not seeing a sacker and fumbling in the red zone of his own red zone. And this was a game of mistakes. He had his favorite wide receiver back. Godwin did almost nothing. And Mike Evans, who is really the stalwart wide receiver, made a lot of catches, but a lot of short plays. And Kansas City was right up on him, and they limited that. They didn't have too many chunk plays. So basically, it was Kansas City going away in what I consider a rout.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this division and I believe that the Falcons are just, I said this a couple weeks ago, even when they're 0-2, I've said that they're the best team in this division. Okay. They went to Seattle, tough place to play, and won. You have Marcus Mariota, Cordell Patterson, Tyler Algier, Hundley. You have a really good running game there. Atlanta's a fresh team. Okay. You have Arthur Smith there, who's a good young coach. All the other coaches I don't really trust. I don't trust Bowles. Dennis Allen was terrible in Oakland. The Saints have no offense right now. You're replacing Sean Payton, and Matt Rule looks like he's going to be fired. So, I mean, next week we're going to learn a lot. The Falcons are 8-point underdogs to Tampa Bay, and Marcus Mariota might have a terrible game against that pass rush. Like, that's what's really going to be worrisome is can the Falcons actually score? And Brady just has the upper edge, though, still in that division. That's the thing. The Bucs are still ahead in that division. It's just that, can any of these teams, New Orleans has been pretty good. Can any of these teams really compete with Tampa Bay, though, to knock them out of the playoffs? Because they're just a stale team. Like, I look at Bulls, and I think Tampa, like, after this year, they're going to go into complete meltdown mode. I don't see that franchise really being a force after Brady leaves in a year.
You're right. And I'll equate it to when Peyton Manning left the Colts. But firstly, when he joined the Colts, they were a dead franchise. And when he left and he went to Denver, there was a period before they drafted Andrew Luck that, they were a dead franchise. So the fact is, Tampa Bay historically has been a very inert franchise, much like Jacksonville. And Tom Brady and Gronkowski and
Mike Evans.
And Mike Evans was there. But
Leonard
just
Fournette,
Leonard
AJ
Fournette,
Brown.
yeah, all those people. And even Bruce Arians, They basically invigorated and breathed life into a dead franchise. And and whenever you have Tom Brady, you've got an instant credibility. And when he leaves, unfortunately, there's going to be a big vacuum.
Is it unfortunate though? I mean, no
I
offense, we're
think
not
so. If
Tampa
you're a
Bay
Tampa
people,
Bay person, you would be.
but Tampa.
I'll give you a perfect analogy. Shaquille O'Neal leaves Orlando, and they have been dead ever since.
The thing is, for Tampa, I'll tell you why that's not a good analogy.
Okay.
Because one, Tampa, they didn't really build this the right. They didn't build it the patient way. They went for instant gratification. They cashed in all their chips for 2 years of incredible fun, and they didn't think about a long-term future. Where you look at the Falcons, they traded Matt Ryan, and they're building from scratch, from ground floor with Arthur Smith, building up. The Houston Texans building up. The Buffalo Bills, when they drafted Josh Allen, they had to build up. The Los Angeles Rams, all they do is get free agents. Tampa's the same way. They're free agent teams. So, frankly, why should instant gratifiers be rewarded in the long term? I mean, I don't like that way of life. I'd rather see the person who builds from scratch have a sustainable product and do things in a very, linear way.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but what I don't like is I don't like there to be franchises that are uninteresting and which don't attract a fan base. And so I like to see franchises do well. And again, Doug Peterson, even though the team is 2-2 and they lost today, they showed a lot. I mean, they jumped out to a 14-0 lead, and it was very, terrible weather conditions. And I'm not sure that Trevor Lawrence, when he was in Clemson or even in Jacksonville, has seen, this kind of a rain. It was just like a monsoon and really cold weather, mid 50s. And the ball was so wet and slippery that he fumbled. Like the first fumble was he was just running and just fumbled the ball and even couldn't get it back when a guy was wide open. So that fumble really could have changed the game. They had a chance to be up by 21-7.
21-0. Well, Trevor Lawrence, Doug Peterson, first of all, Trevor Lawrence needs to get with his equipment staff. They need to muddy up those balls a lot more so that it's tougher to.
Today it'll be muddy and wet. So there's no excuse for today.
Carp.
Yeah, maybe some carp. Maybe use some of that super glue. Maybe some of that pine tar.
Monkey.
Get some of that.
It's Gorilla Gold. Gorilla.
Yeah, that would be great. When you hold that, the great thing is you have a grip. The bad news is it's like crazy super glue. It doesn't leave your hand.
Spider tack.
Yeah, spider tack.
Oh, and the problem is you'll put your hand on your jersey and you'll take off all your jersey will just come onto your hand.
I remember that girl tried to spider tack her wrist to the court.
Oh,
remember that?
Oh yeah.
Is that in Memphis? Where was it?
I thought
that was in
really
Minnesota.
Appropriate with
no, not at all. It's totally appropriate.
It was very appropriate.
Of course, we're always appropriate.
Did that girl make a good decision?
A great decision.
Because we're still talking about it.
Right. She made a great. I think she was protesting for who knows what.
So Doug Peterson, I think that he honestly might have been betting on the Eagles today. That's how terrible of a job he did today. I mean, it takes a certain amount of talent to make your young quarterback lose the ball 5 times. I mean, I think Doug was way too aggressive today. He should have kept it on the ground more. What do you think about today's game? I think he was going balls to the wall, airing it out. I think Doug was reckless today.
I don't think Jacksonville has a good running game. I think the strength of the Eagles defense, if you look at it today and every day, you've got Fletcher Cox, you've got Jordan Davis, but you also have other guys, TJ Edwards plugging the middle, Hargraves, Williams. Like they have a whole rotation of great defensive tackles and defensive ends. And even Brandon Graham had a great stop today. So Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox are older guys, and this might be their last years. But in the last 2 weeks, they've had a renaissance.
When we talk about the Philadelphia Eagles, and even though we're based in the Philadelphia area, I mean they're the story.
This is Rover Sports
they're the
National.
Story of the league. But I'm going to ask you about the Eagles before we go to the rest of the league.
Go ahead.
I believe that this Eagles team, if they out of 16 games, because we're going to talk about 16, if they win 14 games, this might be the best team that the Eagles have ever had. I mean, 2017, the Super Bowl year, But if this team goes 14-2, this might be, I mean, McNabb had great years with T.O. when they made the Super Bowl. This might be a top 5 team in Eagles history. I mean, I know we're starting off, maybe it's a top 5 month of September that the Eagles have ever had in their history, going undefeated in this
I
month.
think one of
Maybe
the
it's
big
one of the
problems
better months in Eagles
when you're
history.
covering a team or even a fan of the team, one of the biggest problems you have, and you saw it in Atlanta, you saw it in other places, you've seen many teams who just get off to a really fast start and then they just fade. The Atlanta Falcons have done that before, and the Eagles can't fall in that trap. If you're going to tell me hypothetically at the end of the year, if the Eagles are 14-3, that would certainly be percentage wise one of their best records in the Super Bowl era. And it would probably propel them to a bye. And there's only one bye. And they'd have to win 2 home games to go to the Super Bowl. So that would be very noteworthy. But it all has to do with injuries. It has to do with the other teams getting hot at the right time. And right now, there's only 4 games, so you're only I don't know, quarter of the way into the season or a little bit more than a third of the way. So, yeah, I think the Eagles have established themselves as a team with the two best wide receivers, I believe, with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. If you consider Goddard part of that team, many people think Goddard is the most complete tight end in the league now that Gronk has retired. As far as blocking, as far as catching after the pass, and just being a wide receiver tight end, he certainly learned a lot from Zach Ertz, and Goddard could just roll over people. So I think there are some great weapons. Miles Sanders today showed himself to be, I'd say, a top 15 running back. He had one good game, today, and he's playing for a contract. And this is his last year. So Miles Sanders has a lot to gain by not just going out with another hamstring injury.
Absolutely. Look at Joe Burrow and what he was able to do last year, and Hurts is kind of matching Burrow's production as a young quarterback so far. I believe, yeah, Goddard's a second round pick. Kelsey, I mean, the way that the Eagles develop their talent, like 7th round pick for Mailata, the way that they develop draft picks, I mean, it's special. Their coaching staff is really special.
There's a question from Lisa from Reading.
Yeah.
And because we're on YouTube and we are doing this national studio stream, a lot of people may not be familiar. You're obviously Spencer G. I am Dr. Bruce, the sports doc. So I've been doing 30 years of sports medicine, and we've had a show cumulatively for a long time, and it's based in Philadelphia, but we've traveled. We were in Miami last week. We cover a lot of college basketball and football, and that leads us to
12 years.
just
We've done the show 12 years since I was in high school. We've done the show, and that's a pretty good amount of time, 12 years. And we started out on Voice America Sports in 2011, and I guess it's still 2022. So it's about 10 or 11 years we've been doing this thing, and we've only been doing it a lot more. Especially
I won't
ago.
quarrel with your numbers, but that doesn't really matter to most people.
Well, it does. It matters a lot.
And I just got a good text from Seth Joyner. All good, Bruce. Thanks. So basically, I was involved on this very set, on this very TV studio earlier with the Jacob Media postgame show here in Philly. And Seth Joyner, I think, is one of the top 3 analysts in the country. And he's also very critical, a former all-pro linebacker for many years with the Philadelphia Eagles. And just to get that text at 1:00 a.m., that's pretty cool. I like it.
Absolutely. So we have NFL stuff. Let's just wrap the NFL, and then we're going to do some college football here.
What other games did you find?
Baker Mayfield getting booed in Carolina.
That's a story. Baker Mayfield getting booed in Carolina. It's really hard because, as we said, you've got kind of apathetic fan base.
Meek.
They haven't really enjoyed a lot of success.
No, it's expansion team.
And the fact that they actually booed Baker Mayfield in the game today was he had 9 balls batted down, and it was really frustrating for the fans there in Carolina.
It has to be because you're leaving. The fans of Carolina are leaving their homes, and that area has just been, I mean, our prayers are for that state.
A lot of flooding, a lot of rain
They're
with
already in a mood
Hurricane
that is,
Ian.
they've already been out with so much adversity with the hurricane that seeing Baker Mayfield throw balls right into the pouches of the defensive line of the
The
Arizona
paws
Cardinals,
and the pouches of kangaroos.
pouches of tobacco.
Absolutely, Tobacco Road, North Carolina.
Tobacco Road, the pouches of tobacco. The thing about Baker Mayfield, Jake's Mayfield, we could call him.
Baker Jakes. Mayfield.
So you thought Baker, I thought Baker would come out, with his, I thought that he would come out.
Show a lot of swag today.
No, just in general. He's playing Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's like his little brother. He babysitted him when he first got to A&M. When he first got to Oklahoma, Kyler Murray was a sophomore from A&M. You remember that? And these two grew up in the quarterback room together. And it's like your little brother, and your little brother goes in and beats you. And then your arch nemesis, Cliff Kingsbury, who didn't offer you a scholarship, he goes in there as well.
That's going to be paid for.
And Cliff Kingsbury walks all over you. It's the Arizona Cardinals. They're soft. Arizona's soft. Kingsbury's soft. It's a ridiculous loss. And for Matt Rule, you need this game. And I think Matt Rule, I mean, he's got to go to college. He's got to, get a new image about himself. This NFL thing, it hasn't worked. And why hasn't it worked? Because he doesn't know offensive football. He selected Sam Darnold as a quarterback. His defenses are fine, but he's hired terrible offensive coordinators like McAdoo. You know him from the Giants. He was terrible.
Yep.
And he's rolled dice. And these quarterbacks that really this offense that has been overseen by Matt Rule, he's done a bad job with offensive football. The NFL is about scoring. It's about explosive plays. You can get away at college with having a great, complete team. But in the NFL, it's pretty QB-centric. And unfortunately, his offenses under his tenure have failed. And it's unfortunate. It's a little like Joe Judge. They're good coaches, but offensively, they haven't figured it out. And that's what Matt Rule's going
And a comment I'll make is Christian McCaffrey came out of college, was highly acclaimed. He gets injured almost every year. Certainly this week, he had one good touchdown catch near the end of the game, although it didn't propel him to victory. But McCaffrey just has not been a horse. He's been hurt. Very disappointing. And also, if you even look at
he's slow
Mayfield, now. Mayfield looked like he had more juice in Cleveland. He doesn't look like he really knows the offense.
They fed him well in Cleveland. That's why.
Yeah, that's right. He layered up a little bit there.
Cleveland's he was actually fed properly. You're right.
Properly.
You're right. He was a big
Has
guy.
to do with his eating.
That's the thing with Baker is that Baker you know what? No coaches trust Baker. I think Baker Mayfield needs to throw it down the field. I think he needs to be on the Wentz plan. But Carson Wentz now has been pretty much almost, I mean, I guess we could say this is a pretty grotesque term. Carson Wentz has been almost neutered in his abilities.
It's not that grotesque. If we have three cats here, so those terms applied.
He threw for 150 yards. I mean,
is that today?
If you're going to sink with Wentz, you might as well let Wentz go absolutely nuts throwing Hail Mary balls. If you're the Washington Redskins.
So when they lost today to the Cowboys,
25-10. That's pathetic. Even the Nationals can probably score more.
That was my lock of the week, by the way.
We nailed our locks. Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
Brady and the Bucks are old. Kansas City's a much better team. We called that. Okay, today. Lions Seahawks. I got no offense. I'm going to brag a little bit. I got every pick right. I knew that game would be over. Lions.
Did you go 6-0 this week?
I got the Eagles game wrong. I was pretty good on Jacksonville pushing the Eagles. Baltimore, I also got correct. Cincinnati was right, and I have the Niners tomorrow. And now the Niners are favored tomorrow. So let's talk. Sorry, let's talk about Missouri. You were really into that game last night. You watched it cover to cover. Eli Drinkowitz he's on the hot seat from Appalachian State. They were a reeling Missouri team. What a performance last night.
Quarterback's a very young guy.
Cook.
His name is Cook from Missouri. It was really exciting in Columbia, Missouri, to see that Georgia was on the ropes and literally 1 yard from going down 21-3. And that 1 yard really was a big yard because there was a false start, a field goal ultimately, and in the second half, it totally flipped the narrative. Georgia just dominated through Edwards and through McIntosh, two excellent running backs. McIntosh just doing just gouging people, and then Edwards coming in and just helping to kill off the clock at the end of the game. And looking at Missouri, they played tight in the second half. They ran out of gas, and that's what happens when you have two SEC teams with drastically different types of personnel. And Georgia is just bigger, stronger, faster. And it was an exciting game, and it would have been one of the most epic upsets ever in history. In fact, you'd have to go back to the 1980s to find a Missouri team that had such an upset. But it was sure fun to watch. And as is with college football, it's really entertaining.
Today, I'm checking the score on Florida. The Gators played like Eastern Tennessee State, all right? And Florida, I think, must have won. Yeah, they did 52-17 actually over Eastern Washington. So let me just tell you in advance, this could be a lock of the week.
Okay.
Missouri,
you mean next week you're talking?
Missouri, the team who got up and played the game of their lives and lost.
Who are they playing?
They have to practice all week. So how do you think they're going to practice?
I think not very hard because I think
poorly. They shot
because they just had their Super Bowl last week.
Shot their
against
load
against
in the most
Georgia
G-way, in the most G term possible. Their load
not
has
a
been
very
shot.
well. You're saying it 5 times, but there's nothing G-rated about it. So I prefer you use another analogy.
Meaning they went all out.
There's no way to say that. Well, I mean, you could say that 5 times. You could,
no,
but I don't think
right.
we need to say it 6 times.
I'm getting to my point.
Hopefully, I could see that the viewers are blowing up. Your choice of the stream was just spectacular. But I have to compliment you on that. So continue.
So
this reminds me of the Concords when they played Central Park. The last time there was such a great review was when the Concords played Central Park.
I can't control.
That's okay. That's all right.
Usually your
that's all right.
Might have just more.
No,
might
this
have
is
one
fun.
or two people.
Maybe we'll
more.
wake up. There'll be 1,000 viewers.
So
It'll
I'm
be perfect.
Florida
While you were sleeping.
Yeah. Exactly.
All the people. Guess what? Everybody who's going to wake up tomorrow, we call them sedated weasels.
Yes.
They're the
Call them
sedated
other
weasels.
Stuff we'll stay off air.
Well, yes,
but
exactly.
That's for off air.
That's right.
Anyway, we could talk college football playoff next time, but I appreciate you doing
this. This is great. Here. We have our this is our maiden voyage of Rover Sports National. I can see we have people from all over, not all over the continent, but all over the globe.
I said it.
I see people in Jakarta. I see people at the Galapagos Islands. I see people in Brazil who are just going through some of this like rainforest area. And they are just, there's turtles there.
I think Galapagos was the guy that is
is a golfer?
Charlie
Darwin.
Charles.
That's right.
Charles
well, listen,
Darwin.
Charles Schwartzel. I want to thank everybody. We're humbled by our turnout tonight. You guys are amazing. I know you're appreciating the high fidelity, the new set, and there aren't words to describe how I feel about the reception we got tonight. And on that, I want to say thank you, Spencer. And I want to say to all the audience worldwide, good night and good sports.